So what do Erin O'Toole's picks for critic portfolios reveal about his leadership and the team headed back to the House of Commons? Jamie Ellerton is a principal at Kanaptis. He previously served as an executive assistant to former Immigration and Citizenship Minister Jason Kenney. Dan Nowlan is a two-time chairman of the Conservative Party's Leadership Election Organizing Committee. He also worked as chief of staff to former Minister of Finance Joe Oliver. Both are in Toronto. Jamie, I'm going to start with you. What stands out to you from today's announcement and what it says to you about how Mr. O'Toole is going to approach caucus management?
I think Erin O'Toole sent a really clear message today that people need to be on the team and rowing in the same direction, or they are not going to be on the front bench. I think when you see that people like Leslie Lewis and Marilyn Gladu were left off, they've been saying a lot of things about relating to vaccines, and this is an issue that the party very much, as this kind of fractious debate has been playing out, is offside with the vast majority of Canadians. I think for Erin O'Toole's leadership 2 months after the last election, this is a chance for him to turn the page and probably have a little bit of a lesser, higher profile of it for himself going forward, and to allow his front bench to start to get into their files, holding the government to account and start to propose constructive solutions that can appeal to more Canadians and help the party build towards the next election.
Dan, same question to you. What does this say about Mr. O'Toole's approach to caucus management?
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with Jamie. One of the things I would say is that it's really great to see a lot of new names being put in pretty senior portfolios. So Melissa Landsman, who worked with us in Minister Oliver's office in transports, that's great. It's great to see Raquel Dan Cho from Manitoba getting promoted to public safety. It's great to see, perhaps old timers, but newcomers like Rick Perkins being in there. So that's great. Jake Stewart from my neck of the woods in New Brunswick. So there's some really great renewal, I'd say. And one thing I would say about Michelle Rempel-Gardner and Pierre Poilievre and the roles that they're in is that they are great communicators. And that's definitely something that we need in those roles, because they're very, very important files, finance and natural resources.
Jamie, what stood out to you as sort of the key picks today that stood out to you that signaled how this caucus is going to go going forward, holding the Liberals to account?
I think putting Pierre Poilievre back in finance is something that's probably going to attract a lot of attention. He's very popular amongst the Conservative base and for Canadians that feel the government's heading in the wrong direction, and got a lot of criticism. Erin O'Toole got a lot of criticism when he took him out of that portfolio prior to the last election. For Michelle Rempel-Gardner going in at natural resources, I think she's able to and proven to be an effective operator in Ottawa. So not only can she speak to the concerns of Albertans and Saskatchewan specifically as it relates to the energy sector, but has the ability to tie that to a broader kind of strategy for Canada as to what that means for our economic viability going forward and the prosperity of all Canadians and how that manifests itself across the country. Dan just talked about my friend Melissa Landsman, who's now the transport critic. This is a huge issue, especially in cities where we hear a lot of announcements of funding being committed to things like subways and transit, but it seems that it always takes forever for them to get built. And so I think having that kind of portfolio, especially being a GTA MP, will bode well for the party in the coming months.
Dan, as both you and Jamie had mentioned, Marilyn Gladu was not included on this list. And today she actually came out with an apology. She did the media rounds heading into the weekend. She was on our program, she was on CTV's program, and did a number of one-on-one interviews and came out with an apology today about some of her comments. What does that signal send to the rest of the party to see Marilyn Gladu if they're coming out, having all of these conversations, talking about the Civil Liberties Caucus, and now she's walking it back?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't read too much into any specific person being in or out, just because look, these are difficult decisions. It's the leader's team. He needs to be comfortable with the team, and he needs to be comfortable with the message they're going to be putting forward. And there's a lot of incredibly hard decisions, and not everybody can be part of every round when you put these shadow cabinets together or cabinets together. So I wouldn't read too much into any of that. I would say that I think it's refreshing to see a lot of the new blood that's in there, and it's that type of renewable and the type of communication ability that there is in this shadow cabinet. It's really refreshing.
Jamie, do you think the Marilyn Gladu apology today is something that the leader's office, wants to take a look at and sort of send a message to say, look, we need you on board on vaccine, on the questions around vaccine efficacy and vaccine mandates? Not necessarily mandates,
yeah,
perhaps not mandates, but vaccine efficacy. Let me be clear on that, efficacy.
Yeah, Katie, I think there's actually some important nuance here, and you kind of heard this in some of what Erin O'Toole had to say at his own news conference yesterday. He understands why some members of Parliament will feel the need to speak up for civil liberties and those who are having their livelihood threatened as a result of some of the government policies that are being instituted. But that's ultimately not what Marilyn Gladu was saying over the weekend. She went much further, was expressing a lot of problematic sentiments as it relates to kind of disinformation on vaccines itself, as well as kind of downplaying the severity of COVID. And so when I think you look at the crass politics of this, the vast majority of Canadians support some form of a vaccine mandate. The vast majority of Canadians are tired of living in this pandemic, are no longer want to experience lockdown. They don't want to have to be working from home while having their kids do Zoom classroom. And if you're a shift worker, that strain is even harder on you because you have to be out of your house while your kid's supposed to be home or in some kind of childcare doing school. And so when you have MPs that are causing problems on these issues and so offside with where Canadians are at, trying to get COVID behind them, I think he had to send a message. And I think he did that today. I think when you look at what this caucus can do going forward, I think it's really incumbent upon the party to be more solutions-oriented going forward on things like vaccines and the public health measures. Every day you're talking about a small minority of the Conservative caucus offside with the mainstream science community and public opinion is a day you're not talking about something else or actually holding this government to account. That's a bad day for the Conservative Party.
Dan, we have less than 1 minute left. I want to ask you what you want to see from the team, the O'Toole team, as they gear up, get ready to head for the return of Parliament. What do you want to see them do as they, prepare to ready to hold the Liberals to account?
Well, I mean, look, I think, and Erin O'Toole spent a lot of time talking about this, I think they need to focus on jobs and the economy and the recovery out of the COVID-19 crisis. That's something that I think Canadians are really focused on. And inflation is a scary thing, and it makes everyone poorer, and it attacks the poorest among us worse. So it is the kind of thing, that economic message is something that's going to be a real focus, I think.
All right, we're going to leave the conversation there. Thank you both.
Thank
you.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.